Welcome to the Astrology Show with your host, Kelly Fox. Each week, Kelly will give you access to the current transits that are a valuable tool which provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has through our sun sign. Understanding the current planetary influences each week can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. Sometimes events in your life may seem completely random, but there is a pattern to the order of these events, one set in motion in part by you and in part by the planets and stars in the sky and their influence on your life here on Earth. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, if you're going to get that promotion, move to a new city, or fall in love, tune in to the Astrology Show for guidance. It can help you anticipate problems before they occur, give you tools to cope with changes, and help you look forward to the wonderful days ahead. Kelly Fox is a professional astrologer and internet pioneer who launched astrology.com, one of the first and most successful astrology websites. Today, her passion lies with her new site, theastrologer.com, where she brings a modern-day approach to an ancient wisdom. Please join Kelly each week to learn more about how the planets can align for you.
Hi there, and welcome to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, and I'm going to be talking about the planets this week and how they are affecting us. Now, we've got three headliners this week. The big ones are the new moon in Virgo, love planet Venus moving into Scorpio, and there's going to be a whole story around that. And then action planet Mars moves into Aquarius, and there's a whole backstory to that. So without any further ado, I think I'm just going to dive straight into it because there is so much to talk about with this week's planets and how they are affecting us. And, of course, at the end of the show, I will give you your weekly horoscope and how the planets, these planetary energies, are affecting your sign. So the first one is the Virgo New Moon. So every month we have a new moon, and August and July were eclipse seasons, and we had two solar eclipses, and a solar eclipse is a supercharged new moon. So now we're back into having, we're done with the eclipses of 2018. The next lot of eclipses will be January 5th and then later in January. So we have a bit of a reprieve when it comes to eclipses. So now I'm just focused on the regular old new moon. And we do have some supermoons coming up, but that's not this month. So, Virgo. So September seems to be a bit of a reprieve month. We've had this Mars that's been that's been retrograde, which seems like for months on end. I'll talk about that as well. And now we're coming into Venus moving into Scorpio this week, and then next month it will turn retrograde. So I'm going to talk about that a bit later on. And, of course, last month we had a Mercury retrograde. And then, of course, as I mentioned in last week's show, and if you didn't hear last week's show, I urge you to go to the OMTimes archive and have a listen, because in that show I talked about the planets for September. And also last week we had Saturn, planet of karma, responsibility and discipline, finally turning direct. So that is a good thing because it's been retrograde for months. So things can start to move forward. We can start to focus on our long-term plans and thinking about the future. So with the Virgo new moon, that occurred on Sunday, and it's like everything around Virgo, because we are in the season of Virgo, and having this Virgo new moon is all about new beginnings. So every month we have a new moon. As I said, last month and the month before, we had supercharged new moons with solar eclipses. So with this Virgo new moon, it's all about new beginnings around health, diet, fitness, work, details, anything that's to do with Virgo. So it's good about getting organised, making to-do lists, clearing the clutter, really focusing on tidying things up, becoming more efficient, and just basically getting stuff done, catching up on things that maybe we've let slide. But really, the best use, well, I personally think the best use of this Virgo new moon is all about diet, health, and fitness. Now, there's no better time to focus on our health, our fitness, what we're eating, and getting a checkup, having regular checkups, that type of thing. So that's a great use of not just Virgo, but with the new moon. New moons are all about new beginnings. So this new moon is actually forming quite a few aspects, which make it very interesting. It gives it, multi-layered, more than one dimension. So having a series of different aspects to the new moon, I'll go through those and then I'll talk about what they mean. So with this new moons are all about new beginnings. Before you can have a new beginning, you have to have an ending. And because it's in the sign of Virgo, Virgo is all about efficiency, health, healing, diet, exercise, tidying things up, getting organised, being efficient, going through your files, filing, going through your closets, clearing out the closets, clearing out the clutter, that type of thing. It's really a focus on your daily life. That's because Virgo is connected to the 6th house, and the 6th house is the house in a chart wheel of daily life. So what this new moon is doing, it's forming a very wide conjunction. Conjunction means next to Mercury, which is a planet of communication. Now, that's really interesting because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. So astrologers would say that Mercury is the ruling planet of this new moon. I know it sounds a lot of gobbledygook, and I will keep that to a minimum. But because this new moon is coming together with communication planet Mercury, it really is all about the mind and intellectual thought processes. Now, the new moon is also forming an opportunistic sextile to Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion, luck and good fortune. It's currently in Scorpio. And the new moon is also forming an opposition to Neptune in Pisces, which means that Neptune is in the opposite sign of this new moon in Virgo. And it's also, finally, the last aspect it's making is a trine, which is a good thing, a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto is the planet of change and transformation. Now, can you see a theme here? So the new moon in Virgo is all about new beginnings around health, diet, fitness. Pluto's about transformation in Capricorn for the long term. And then, of course, Jupiter in Scorpio is feeling optimistic and hopeful. Scorpio being a fixed sign is also about the long term. But it's having some sort of intellectual thought processes around health, diet, and fitness, as well as that opposition to Neptune. It's all about using our intuition to find, what's best for us with these new beginnings. And we're ready to transform. Many of us have been through a lot of tough times during the Northern Hemisphere summer. And it's with the eclipses and, the Mars, not just Mars retrograde, but then the Mars-Uranus clash throughout the summer. That started in May. So there's been a lot going on for many people, and especially those of us that have any planets in fixed signs, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And the fixed signs do typically find it difficult to make changes or change course. And so, many of us have been shaken up or sort of forced to make these changes unwillingly in some ways. But so now we do have a bit of a reprieve. with all this Virgo energy, it's very much about go with the flow. Like if something comes up, it's easier to make a change than rather sort of find it difficult to make changes. And of course with astrology, there's always pros and cons to everything. Nothing's a bed of roses and nothing's, like a thorn in our side. So with this new moon forming a lot of aspects to different planets, there's a lot of layers going on at the moment. It's not just what you see is what you get. There's so much more behind this new moon than what we typically see each month. A lot of aspects here. So I'm going to break that down and go through what each of the aspects are. But first, new moons, new beginnings. We have to have an ending before we move on to a new beginning. And then with this new moon in Virgo, it's the focus is, one of the things is health, diet, fitness. But because this new moon is hooking up with Mercury, it's coming close together with Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo. So Mercury is planet of the mind. It's our intellectual mind. It's how we think. It's how we speak. It's how we communicate. So I would say that Mercury is the ruler of this new moon. Even though there's other aspects, Mercury rules Virgo. The new moon is in Virgo. So it's all about not just physical, but it's putting the physical together with the intellectual. So, and of course, new moon represents the sun and moon coming together. The sun is the core of who we are, and the moon is our emotions. So when you put intellectual processes together with emotions, it's sort of like it's a nice balance of not just, it's like our mind and our hearts are aligned at this time with this Mercury coming together with the new moon. And so what that means is that, it's good for not just tidying up, because that's, typical of Virgo. And I know some of you out there are probably saying, well, I'm a Virgo and I'm a big slob, or, I know someone who's a Virgo and they're not very neat and orderly. That's the shadow sign of the influence of this sign. So typically, everything has a shadow sign. As I said, there's pros and cons to everything. And so typically Virgo is a sign known for its efficiency, and getting things done and sweating the small stuff when everyone else can't be bothered. So with Virgo and this new moon in Virgo, it's about, tidying up and getting organized and getting things done and getting ahead of things. And because it's coming together with Mercury, there's a lot of cerebral type of energy. And also, when with this new moon coming together with Mercury, think about it as well, like, a lot of chatting around the water cooler. Hearts and minds are coming together and people feel like sharing. And I don't necessarily mean in a gossipy sort of way, because that sounds negative, but it's sort of like connecting with other people at a heart level. And, because of the involvement of Neptune as well. Neptune's a planet of, intuition and spirituality and creativity and compassion and caring. So it's there's a sensitivity in the air because of this new moon in opposition to Neptune. Doesn't mean it's coming together easily or effortlessly. It's more about, finding that balance between care and compassion and, reaching out to others or connecting with other people compared to, gossiping or, not having the feelings and having the sense of mind to not using Mercury in a really gossipy sort of way, which it does have a bit of a reputation for at times. So as I said, mental processes are stimulated by emotional content. So it's going to be important around at this time with this new moon coming together with Mercury, that we don't just, go to one side and, make our decisions based off our feelings or the mood of the moment. So having the involvement of Mercury, it sort of helps to level it out. you know, and of course with the opposition to Neptune, it's about using our instincts or our intuition to help us find that balance between not just all logic and no heart, but, you know, a well-rounded energy with all these planets involved with this new moon. And so it also involves like any sort of mental activities will be highly favoured at this time. Many of us might find that we're able to express ourselves clearly and authentically. And so, you know, many of us, I say many because I'm still a bit wary of saying this is really flowing, because we do have the opposition to Neptune, and Neptune is a planet of confusion. So you throw that into the mix. If you didn't have Neptune involved with this new moon, and it was just simply, you know, Mercury, planet of the mind, coming together with the energy of the new moon, I would be saying, you know, everybody's got this clear state of mind, you know, where all guns are firing, our minds are just succinct, everything's like in rational thought processes, you know, we're just sort of got a handle on it. But then, you know, I can't fully say that because of the opposition to Neptune, planet of confusion. And I typically say that Neptune's planet of, I think of nebulous. That's a really good word for Neptune. Nebulous Neptune is involved with this new moon. So it sort of just makes things a little bit more complicated. But everything else, all the other connections to Jupiter and Pluto are really good with this new moon. It's just there's a little bit of confusion that's going around because of Neptune. So with the new moon conjunct Mercury, planet of the mind, it's a really great time for any sort of writing or journaling or blogging, reading books, writing letters or correspondences. It's a great time to sort of use this opportunity to read or to study or to research or delve into the most interesting areas of any sort of study that you might want to do. If you've got a pile of books on your nightstand, it's sort of like you can get through those easily and effortlessly. It's like if there's any sort of dense material that you need to cover or read, this is a pretty good time to do it. And, you know, as I keep going on about Neptune, the involvement of Neptune will actually help you process that information on a subconscious level. So on that note, we are going to take a short break, so stay tuned.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is John Ondrasik of Five for Fighting, here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. You know, style is a personal thing, and your lifestyle is your business. But if you take it on the road, it becomes everybody's business. So please, plan ahead, Designate before you celebrate. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. This week we've got a new moon in Virgo. Love planet Venus moves into sizzling Scorpio, where it will be for an extra long time, because next month in October we've got a Venus retrograde. Also this week we've got warrior planet Mars moving back into Aquarius. And there is a backstory to that, which I will get to in just a moment. So before the break, I was talking about the new moon in Virgo and how it's connecting to so many other planets, which gives it so many dimensions to the energy of this new moon. And the new moon was exact on Sunday at 11:01 a.m. Pacific time, 2:01 p.m. Eastern time, and it occurred at 17 degrees Virgo. So it came together with Mercury, planet of the mind, and Mercury being the ruler of Virgo. So this new moon is very much of the mind. But we have an opposition to Neptune, which is planet of the subconscious, also of confusion. So even though we're feeling like things are really clear, we know what's what, there is a little bit of a tad touch of something not being clear at all. Now, we also have this new moon forming a very nice opportunistic sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of luck and good fortune. So, many of us might be feeling upbeat or optimistic, generous. With the involvement of Neptune as well, it's about care, compassion, charity. So with Jupiter, it's generosity and goodwill. And it's like it's a time, or this week, to make meaningful connections with other people. Even if they're casual, it's very much about connecting with others on an intellectual level, which affects us at the heart level. And it's about personal satisfaction as well, with the positive aspects to Jupiter and also to Pluto. So, Jupiter is a planet of luck and good fortune. So at this time, many of us maybe have a newfound confidence and an optimistic outlook. We're creating opportunities with this nice sextile to Jupiter from the new moon. And it's important now as well to focus on the broader vision. Now, I talked a lot about, with the new moon in Virgo, it's all about, and Mercury, of course, there as well, it's all about the detail. But with this sextile to Jupiter, Jupiter is all about, the broader vision or the big picture. So it's really bringing detail and, the bigger picture or the higher principle together really easily and effortlessly. Whereas typically, what we might have is struggling, with the detail. We're all focused on the detail. We're missing the big picture, or vice versa. It's when they say the forest from the trees. It's all coming together really easily and effortlessly. And, we're not worried about one or the other. It sort of just flows together. So this is also a time, with this sextile to Jupiter, that it's a time for seeing the bigger picture, creating really good social connections that will pay off in the future, especially now that Saturn, planet of the long term, and also in its own sign of Capricorn, the long term. So it's like things will start to pay off that we can use in the future. Or if we start thinking about the future or the long term, this is now the time to do it, because we can see the details and we can also see the big picture. So that's really important, because it doesn't happen too often at this level. But this is a pretty big scope for details, big picture, long term, feeling optimistic. It's about being generous as well, charitable because of the involvement of Neptune with this new moon. So it's like we're willing to sort of reach out to others, help others, without expecting anything in return. Now, with the involvement of this Neptune, it's sort of like, there's always something. Nothing's ever perfect, without sounding like a big downer, even saying that. But it's like there's always something, so just always be aware of that. So it's important with this involvement from Neptune to this new moon that we do have concrete information. It's like, don't always take anything at face value as much as we want to, because, Jupiter's really upbeat. It doesn't want to pay attention to detail. It just wants to sort of go with the flow. But it's very important that we really do have concrete evidence or information before we sort of blindly go into something. There could be a little bit of misperception, misunderstanding, miscommunication, because Neptune opposes the new moon and Mercury, and it's important to just not sort of dive straight in, even though we really want to. As I said, there's a little bit of confusion, maybe feeling unmotivated. That might be another way that this energy plays out. Things being a little bit cloudy in some ways, or maybe a little bit of low energy, even though we have good intentions. As I said, this energy is all about diet, exercise, focusing on detail. We sort of want to, but, Neptune might be sort of holding us back in some sort of way. And also, here's another thing. It's important, especially this week, that we protect ourselves. If you think about the white light and, consciously being aware that we need to always protect ourselves, because with Neptune, it can sometimes be used like a sponge, the energy of Neptune, because Neptune's an empath. It's very spiritual, it's creative as well, it's psychic. But it's like sometimes, on the flip side of that, if we think of ourselves like a sponge and we're absorbing this energy, indiscriminately, which is the opposite energy of Virgo, and especially because Neptune is opposite this Virgo new moon at the moment. So it's really important that we make sure that we're not absorbing what's going on around us, and that's positive or negative. So which could be quite frustrating, because that's where the sort of confusion comes in, because there's no boundaries at the moment around this type of energy. So a good use or a good offset of that is make sure you get plenty of sleep, pay attention to your dreams, even taking a bit of time off to watch a movie. That's really a great use of like stimulating the imagination, until we become a little bit more clear-headed. And, of course, always meditation and any type of spiritual work will be beneficial to offset this, what they call a hard aspect with Neptune being in opposition to this new moon and, of course, Mercury. Also with the new moon, I know it's like this new moon, I'm talking about it endlessly because there are just so many influences and so much depth around this new moon, more than what we typically see. So this new moon will also be forming a trine, which is a soft, harmonious aspect with Pluto. Now, every time you say the word Pluto or mention Pluto's name, there's a bit of a shaking in our boots going on, because Pluto is the most intense, heaviest hitting planet, and yes, it's a planet in the zodiac. So, but in this case, it's good energy because it's a trine. So this new moon was 120 degrees away from Pluto, which is a really good thing. So this is a really good energy. Pluto's a planet of change and transformation. So, and you put that together with the new moon in Virgo, which is very much about health, diet, and fitness. And so this is a really good time to sort of look deep inside, and maybe perform some thoughtful self-analysis. That's probably a good way of saying it. And it's better than psychoanalyzing other people. It's better to look within and see how we can evolve and improve where we're at. And I said health, diet, and fitness, but that sort of encompasses, the self-analysis. And it's good to not sort of play armchair psychologist or therapist to others. And it's like maybe grab the metaphorical flashlight and follow our own fears down to their powerful core. You know, with the involvement of Pluto, it's such an intense energy that this is a really good use for doing that. And it's like, you know, perhaps the result might be, you know, some insight and improved understanding of ourselves, which gives us freedom to make better choices in our own personal behaviour, perhaps. And so, you know, with this energy, it's about finding new resources that might have been there all along when the new moon, you know, is forming this trine to Pluto, but we haven't recognised these resources that we've had all the time. So that's another way. So it's like if we are prepared to go deeper or take a deeper look within ourselves and maybe clean up and clear out any long-standing problems we've been dealing with. It's a fantastic use of this planetary energy. It's a very potent energy. And, you know, honesty is the best policy right now. You know, we're looking for authenticity, maybe of emotion and experience, and not just the same old thing each time. But it's really going to be up to us. Will we recognize the difference? So perception is very heightened with this influence of, you know, the new moon conjunct Mercury forming this really great trine to Pluto. It's like diving in deep and expecting results, you know, being our own detective. And it will be hard to sort of pull the wool over anyone's eyes at this time as well. So there's the new moon. Lots to say about the new moon that's happening or that has happened on Sunday, but still in effect this week. Next up, we have love planet Venus moving into Scorpio. Now, there's a big story around this one as well. So Venus is a planet of love. It moved into Scorpio actually the same day as the new moon, so on Sunday, September 9th. Now, the love planet Venus will be in Scorpio all the way through October 31st, and then again December 2nd until January 7th. That's a really, really long time. Venus will turn retrograde on October 5th through October 31st in Scorpio, and then it will continue its retrograde into Libra from October 31st through November 16th. So love planet Venus will be appearing to be moving backwards through Scorpio and then Libra. I want to say, and I think I mentioned this last week or maybe the week before, that anytime Venus is retrograde, that is not a time to get married or make a commitment or get engaged, etc., etc. And it's mind-blowing that every time Venus turns retrograde, for years and years, I always hear of a friend or someone or you know, someone's friend who I've read for will be getting married or engaged. It's just mind-blowing to me. And so my conclusion to that has been there's definitely some pretty heavy karma around the connection between two people who choose to get married on a Venus retrograde. And, of course, nobody knows that it's Venus retrograde except astrologers. So I guess my advice on that note would be consult an astrologer before you pick your wedding date. How about that? So when love planet Venus is in Scorpio, like it's going to be through most of the time through early January, this is all about deep intimacy and intense passion. And this is not about any sort of superficial connections or casual dating. It's like focusing on one person and going and getting really, really deep and really, really raw with one other. So it's like if we're involved with someone else, we will want to give all of ourselves and reveal who we really are and want to feel safe and need to feel safe doing that. Now, there's a lot of intensity of feelings when it comes to relationships. So, you know, some people might be afraid of that intensity or scaring other people away. So, you know, some of us might use this energy to sort of hold back or conceal our emotions because we're afraid that they're just so big, or afraid of vulnerability. So that's something to really pay attention to now through, of course, early January. And so it's like, you know, because when we take the risk of sharing our authentic self, you know, we're opening the door to intimacy. And also, you know, on the flip side, it could be rejection. And that's sort of like the risk we have to take. Now, when Venus is retrograde, which it will be throughout October, that's the time when things will really, really come up. And if you're in a partnership, you know, this whole time with Venus in Scorpio is an excellent time to deepen our bonds and strengthen our sense of trust. Trust is one of the key words here when Venus is in Scorpio. But, you know, we will, on the flip side, especially when Venus is retrograde, and that's October 5th through October 31st, you know, some of us might need to work through some of the shadow sides of Venus in Scorpio. And that would be jealousy, abandonment, betrayal, trust again. I should emphasize that word a whole lot more. So it's like, you know, even though we might be willing to expose ourselves, you know, by sharing our deepest thoughts and feelings, you know, and it's about regenerating our relationships or transforming old patterns with Venus in Scorpio, and especially the retrograde. Now, Venus turns retrograde at nearly 11 degrees Scorpio on October 5th, and then, of course, it retrogrades back into Libra on October 31st, all the way through November 16th, although I want to say it's 15th. Yes, no, it's 16th. I don't know, I had 15th in my head. So with Venus retrograde, it does ground us in the relationship department. It does put a damper on our love life and our relationships, bringing those walking on the clouds back down to earth. Oh, and on that note, I think we need a break. So stay tuned, and I will continue right after the break.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Tune in to The Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World with me, host Robin Fritz, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern. I'll cover personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice, and more, all to help you tap your own intuitive and healing skills. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. Big news, we had a new moon, we have a new moon, Venus moving into Scorpio, where it will be all the way through January 7th. And then, of course, warrior planet Mars moving back yet again into Aquarius. Lots of stories around the current influences at the moment. Just before the break, I was talking about Venus in Scorpio and what to expect when it turns retrograde October 5th through the 31st. Now, Venus is the planet that turns retrograde the least amount of times. Now, Venus retrograde will teach us that there are always the other side. There's always the other side to love and beauty. So there's going to be flip side to everything when it comes to our relationships. And it's it's going to be about how we compromise, because Scorpio is a fixed sign. So if you're a fixed sign or have any planets in fixed signs, and if you don't know where your planets are, go to my website, theastrologer.com, and get a free chart wheel. And each week on the show, you can follow along to see where your planets are and how the current planets are affecting your own natal planets. So if you have any fixed planets, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, this Venus retrograde will be affecting you, and Venus in Scorpio as well as Mars in Aquarius. So when we get closer to the Venus retrograde, I will be talking all about that. There's a lot to say, so you'll have to tune in. And so there's going to be a lot of aspects that Venus and Scorpio will make. And the first one here, I'm just looking in my calendar, fascinatingly enough, is going to be on, yes, I was right. I was thinking, have we had this? On Wednesday. So Venus moved into Scorpio on Sunday, and then straight away on Wednesday, it's forming an opposition to Uranus in Taurus. And then, of course, on October 31st and then November 30th, it will form this aspect 3 times because of the Venus retrograde. Now, this is going to be a really interesting week. Lots of ups and downs when it comes to relationships. We don't know what to expect. Many of us will dig our heels in. It's sort of best to find compromises. There should be some strange impulses and maybe some crazy thoughts when it comes to our relationships when Venus opposes Uranus, the planet of the unexpected. And then, of course, I will address the aspects that the Venus retrograde will make when I do that show. And that show will be the first week in October when I talk about in detail about the Venus retrograde, and then all the other aspects that Venus in Scorpio will make. Next up, we have warrior planet Mars moving back into Aquarius. Oh, this has been the never-ending story for 2018. So that happens, or that has just happened, I should say. So September 10th through November 15th. And so the first cycle of 2018 of Mars in Aquarius was May 15th, and then it immediately squared Uranus in Taurus because Uranus moved into Taurus that same day, strangely enough. And then Mars turned retrograde on June 26th, and so it continued wreaking havoc by the energy moving backwards of Mars all the way through August 12th, and then it continued retrograding through Capricorn, and then it turned direct August 27th. Again, it sounds like a lot to process, but if you can bear with me, it's really important because we've got a sigh of relief sort of coming. I won't mention just yet the Mars square Uranus and the Mars and Venus squares coming up, but whatever. We'll just take what we can get. So really, the last square that Mars will make to Uranus this year will be September 18th, which is next week. And so tune in next week to find out all about what that means. So with Mars in Aquarius, and of course this all depends on how this influence affects your birth chart, this is all about asserting our independence and our individuality. You know, it's like when Mars is planet of action, it's a warrior planet. When it comes together in Aquarius is the freedom seeker. So many of us will be longing to break free from other people's expectations of us. And we might want to experiment with expressing more of who we are, like our authentic self. and then maybe taking a risk of letting our eccentricities show. And many of us, not naming any signs, but the fixed signs maybe, will probably hate being told what to do when Mars is in Aquarius. And if you have any authority issues, they're probably likely to appear now, which could get some of us into hot water, especially next week when Mars squares Uranus, the planet of the unexpected. So with Mars in Aquarius, it's like our rebellious impulses are more effective when we channel them into maybe a volunteer project or some sort of humanitarian cause, because it's all about being a philanthropist at this time as well, or being a team player. It's a good use of that, especially with, the sextile from Jupiter to the new moon. It's about, working with others, working for the greater good. Some of us might even feel revitalized and take action that benefits the collective and serves the greater good. So, with this energy of Mars in Aquarius, our energies will be drawn to the future, anything technological or scientific. Many of us might have little patience for following traditions when Mars is in Aquarius, or doing things a certain way just because that's how it's always been done. So this is a really great time for innovation and, getting flashes of brilliant ideas that seemingly come out of nowhere. It's a good thing to write down these inspirations or make a note of them before they disappear into the ethers, because we might not be able to act on them when we have that moment. So many of us might find, especially if you're an air sign, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, that your mind could be buzzing and physically active. Being physically active will help get rid of some of that nervous tension that can build up with this particular influence. Now, as I said, Mars will be forming a challenging square to Uranus next week, September 18th. So this is just take care, the build up to that, because this square has been going on since May 15th, back and forth with the retrograde of Mars and then the retrograde of Uranus. So next week, be very careful. It's starting to build now. Tempers will flare. People clashing, digging their heels in, not finding compromise, explosions, sometimes even violence when Mars squares Uranus, revolution, unrest. It's sort of like it's a contentious energy. Things build up until they become intolerable, starting all the way back through May when this square first started, this cycle. Some of us might be impulsive and feeling rebellious and overreacting, just at the slightest provocation, people lacking patience or not being able to conceal it, that type of thing around this Mars square Uranus. So, people not caring what other people think. So that's just one to pay attention to that is coming up with Mars moving back into Aquarius. Now, the other aspects we have this week, some good news, and none of this is bad news, it's just this is really good news, I should say, is on Tuesday we've got the Sun forming a really nice sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter, of course, being the planet of hope and optimism. So this promises a lot of, luck and good fortune, and people have a newfound confidence and they're feeling optimistic this week and creating opportunities. And, it's important, as I said before earlier on, that we keep a broad vision. And I mentioned this with the new moon, but when the Sun forms a sextile to Jupiter and the moon sextile Jupiter, but it's going to be exact on Tuesday. It was in influence or within orb, as astrologers say, with the new moon, but on Tuesday it will be exact. So we've got this sort of good feeling about, these next few days when we can see the bigger picture, the big social connections, being generous and that sort of thing. And then, of course, also on Tuesday, the Sun formed its exact trine to Pluto, which was part of the new moon that we had on Sunday. And then, of course, continuing with that, on Wednesday, we have Jupiter sextile Pluto, all wrapped into the new moon energies of the weekend. But Jupiter sextile Pluto, this is a fantastic influence. This is one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorite aspects, and this is definitely one of them. This is a really great time. It's when, our ambitions, our convictions, and desire to excel are all stimulated during this time, this week, with this influence. So it's, a perfect time to examine and affect any sort of methods we're using to advance ourselves, which ties in really well together with the new moon in Virgo. And, of course, Pluto is all about change and transformation, how we focus on ourselves, how we can move ahead, what we need to do to fix what is not working with that influence of that Virgo new moon. But with this Jupiter sextile Pluto, it's like we're virtually unstoppable. We've got this determination and a willingness and even faith, to dig deep and work hard to achieve our goals. If there's any sort of research you need to do, this is a great time to do it. And it's a time, and especially because Jupiter's in Scorpio, it's a time to examine what's previously been hidden or previously hidden motivations. So it's like we're now willing to look at the underpinnings of our belief systems and, come up with some newfound knowledge. This can be a wonderful influence for, inspiring lecturers or teachers, because, Jupiter is also represents teaching and learning. So it's like, it's a good time to sort of discover something new. And also I'd mention, Venus opposite Uranus on Wednesday. So there's ups and downs with relationships, and, wanting to go deep and, sort of unearthing things that have previously been hidden or not apparent. And then we also have on Wednesday Venus sextile Saturn. Now, this is a really nice influence as well. So during this time, we can get a lot done and feel good about it. So, work and labour are a good focus for this type of energy. And, our affections are strong, but we might not be really willing or able to express our emotions. So it's good to make a big purchase at this time or think of long-term financial strategies with this sort of influence. Then on Thursday, we've got Mercury opposite Neptune, which is still part of the influence of the new moon from the weekend. So just be careful with confusion or not taking anything really at face value. And then we have on the weekend Mercury trine Pluto, which again is still part of this new moon influence. And it's about research and digging deep. And I'm looking at the time. We're running out of time, so I'm going to whiz through the weekly horoscopes really, really fast because there is just so much to say about the planetary energies of this week. So if you're in Aries, it's going to be important to look at yourself as a holistic being. So it's like what is not working in your life, this is a good time to fix it. If you're a Taurus, it's like this is a time to sort of indulge your inner child or spend time with kids and looking at the world from childlike eyes. If you're a Gemini, don't be surprised if you feel the urge to nest at home. So it's a good time to clear out any clutter and get your home in order. If you are a Cancer, this is the perfect moment to say what you've been wanting to say this week. If you're a Leo, among all the things you value in life, do you value your time? This is a week or time to spend doing things just for you. If you are a Virgo, your willpower is extremely strong because the new moon is in your sign and it boosts your energy. This is the time to give up a bad habit or start a positive new one. If you're a Libra, look into creative visualization, cosmic ordering, and other energy work with this intense planetary activity this week. Pay attention to the messages you are getting. If you're a Scorpio, new friends are waiting to be made this week, but it's up to you to take those first steps toward a better social life. And if you are a Sagittarius, instead of fighting against authority, find your own natural authority within you and learn to work with it. Others will follow your lead if you inspire them. If you are a Capricorn, try to visit some new places. Travel. The further, the better is highlighted. But there's a great deal you can explore just in your own hometown. visit places you loved as a child, or strike out to somewhere completely new. But just go wherever it is. If you are an Aquarius, self-analysis will pay dividends this week, as will work on your own personal growth. It'll be a good idea to look into psychological therapy of some kind or self-help techniques, which will grow your confidence and your self-esteem. And finally, if you are a sweet Pisces, and if you're single, the new moon in your love zone invites you to visualize what you want and need from a relationship in order to manifest it. And if you are already in love, create some special memories by rekindling that spark. Isn't that nice? So I went through those really fast and I had another minute or so. I just wanted to make sure that everybody got their weekly horoscope. There is so much going on this week. You know, we've got an industrious Virgo new moon, which does bring some busy energy this week, and there's a lot of planets tied into that new moon. All of it good, a little bit of an opposition from Neptune, which sort of forces us to pay attention to the detail and not take things at face value. So this is an ideal time to take action on plans laid very long ago. You know, Saturn just turned direct last week, and so Saturn's all about long-term planning and taking care of responsibility. So on that note, I wish you all a good week, and thank you for joining me. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, and this is The Astrology Show.